Hello and welcome to Racing News 365. Answer your fan questions. From Racing News 365, my name is Nick Golding and I'm delighted to be joined by 2023 Young Journalist of the Year, Sam Absolutely Coop. And of course, the man, the myth, the legend of the moment, lead editor Ian Parks. I said in the podcast I'm doing it for the rest of the year until I think of something better. So therefore, it stays. Let's get straight into these questions because we have got some fantastic ones which have been fired in from the viewers of the Racing News 365 podcast, which make sure you go and check out. And of course, if you're wanting us to answer your questions, let us know in the comments below what you want to ask, but also keep an eye out on an Instagram post on our story that goes live every Sunday where we ask you what questions you want us to answer. So Ian, I'm going to come to you first, and this question is from Chris, and a very interesting one, actually. Why is Fernando Alonso Gabriel Bortoleto's manager? And of course, for those who are unaware, Gabriel Bortoleto is the current F2 Championship leader who will be racing for Stake F1 Sauber next season. Ian, take it away.
Take it away. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, good question, mate, actually. Quite simply, Fernando, we know he's ingrained in motorsport. You know, he's been Formula One driver now for 2 decades. Huge karting enthusiast as well. He's obviously got his own kart track over there in Spain. And of course, to continue that element of his career, he set up a management company a few years back now called A14. Set it up with 2 very close friends of his, Albert Esclosa and Albert Abeladas as well. Forgive me if apologies if I've got the Spanish pronunciations of those names wrong, but 2, as I say, 2 very close colleagues. And basically it was all designed, as any kind of management company is when it's looking at drivers, to find up-and-coming talents. And when it feels it has that kind of talent, to naturally then nurture it along. And obviously when you have someone by your side as great as Fernando Alonso has been and still is at this stage, at this remarkable stage of his career, then quite obviously you are going to get the best. Fernando and his 2 co-founders, they've got various talents on their books now, and obviously one of those that they saw up and comers going back a couple of years ago now was Gabriel. So he was signed back in 2022, and just look at what Gabriel has achieved since he joined that management company. He became F3 champion the year after he'd signed, and right now he's on the brink of winning the F2 title, but obviously, more importantly, he's going to have a seat in F1 alongside the guy that has played a role in managing him over these past couple of years. So it's just a case of one of those that Fernando and his team had spotted someone, they saw this talent in Gabriel, and quite clearly, as I say, they've been able to bring the very best out of him over these past 2 years. And it's going to be a fascinating battle, one that I know Gabriel is very much looking forward to next season, because I actually asked him the question when there was a press conference, an online press conference for his unveiling at Stake, going back a week ago now. How is he going to feel going up against a guy who is effectively a part of his management team? As you can imagine, it's something that he never assumed could possibly happen, but boys, he's so looking forward to it. It's going to be really intriguing. It's almost like a father-son kind of relationship when you think about it in some respects, given the ages of the 2 guys, Fernando and Gabriel. But I'm trying to think, guys, has anything like that ever happened before, where a driver who is a driver manager is going up against one of the guys that he's nurturing and bringing through? As I say, for me, I don't recall it. It's going to be one of those fascinating little subplots for 2025, that's for sure. But thank you, Chris, for the question.
The only comparison I can make is looking at MotoGP and Valentino Rossi, who obviously has his academy, and obviously then in the latter stages of his career was racing the riders that obviously he'd nurtured in Italy as part of the academy. Thank you, Chris, for the question. And actually an interesting point of Fernando Alonso. I was in Madrid last week for Formula E preseason testing, and I actually walked on Fernando Alonso Avenue, which I was pretty. It wasn't until I walked down. Sorry, I didn't take a picture, but I walked along Fernando Alonso Avenue. I feel like I've achieved something in life finally. Sam, we'll come to you with the next one. And it comes from Tygo, who asks, Lando Norris keeps making mistakes when he is under pressure. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Tygo, for the question. A nice open-ended question, a blank canvas for me.
Oh, God, where do you start now?
I think the statement's absolutely correct. I think he has made those mistakes, and I think he has the pressure has got to him. I think it shows that he's not ready to fight for a championship, week in, week out against Max, and that's why we didn't see that gap really close and has now started to extend when he's had a better car than Max over the past half a season. Mm. So I think, basically, the long and the short of it, it shows he's not ready. Does that mean that he won't be ready moving forward? Absolutely not. And actually, he's probably more likely to be in a championship fight and be able to consistently contend next year because he's had this season to make those errors, to feel his way through. It's been a steep development curve, but it is one that will ultimately hold him in good stead moving forward. So a lot of these drivers need that process before they finally get over the hump. And that, I think, is what we'll look back on this season as when Lando Norris's career is said and done.
Well answered. Tycho, thank you very much for the question. And just all those questions that I'm answering from people, if I pronounce your name wrong, I am really, really sorry. I try my best to get it right. Hopefully I've done it all right so far. Next question, come back to you, Ian, is from Yavar. Will Adrian Newey make Aston Martin realise there's no saving Lance Stroll and finally replace him? A powerful question.
I absolutely love this question. I think it's brilliant. Great question. Thank you ever so much, Yavar. You got to think, if there is one person who could change the mind of Lawrence Stroll about his son, then surely it is the most decorated technical director in the history of the sport. Lance Stroll, 6th season in Formula One, 163 starts, 1 pole position, 3 podiums, and has scored on average less than 2 points per Grand Prix. I think we all know that if it was not for Lance's father, Lawrence, overseeing this Formula One team, then you would assume quite comfortably that Lance would have been ditched by any other owner/team principal combination up and down the paddock. Because there are many occasions, far too many to mention, you would have to assume, where Lance has just not looked good enough for Formula One. And it has been that oft asked question, why is he still competing? You have to wonder if he's ever asked himself that same question on occasion as to why he's still here. Bearing in mind some of the cars he's had, yes, okay, we can caveat it to a certain extent by the fact that he's not had great machinery throughout those 6 years. And it's been a bit of a struggle, but this is Aston Martin's 4th season now in the sport as Aston Martin. And with all the money, with all the technical know-how that has been brought into the team, with the way this team now has all these new facilities, you've got to think that next season, 2025, it's going to be another difficult season for the team coming out of this one, bearing in mind where that car is in relation to its rivals. And as we've mentioned many times, that the car next season is simply going to be an extension of what's coming out of this season, given the regulation change for 2026. So going into 26, you would assume that Lance will still be there. Will that likely be his last chance? Bearing in mind that will be the Newey focused car. I would assume so. How much longer can this continue with Lance being behind that wheel? So as I say, and I'm going to go back to my very first comment, if anybody can convince Lawrence Stroll to make a driver change, you would assume it's Adrian.
Yuvar, thank you very much for the question, and well answered, Ian. Sam, we'll come back to you for the final question of this video, and it comes from Adrian, and quite an interesting one, I think, as well, given what happened to Mercedes in first practice back in Monza. Do you think Mercedes has set the standard too high for Kimi Antonelli?
That's a very good question. Thank you very much for it. I think yes and no. I think maybe initially, I think they've realised those errors, and we're talking specifically around Monza.
Yeah,
Toto Wolff has said, actually, in hindsight, was that too big a platform? Your home Grand Prix, the first time in an F1 car on a race weekend, was that asking too much? Yeah, evidently, because Kimi felt the pressure to the extent that he overcooked it. He put too much in too soon, and he lost the car and ended up in the wall. Overall, though, I don't think it's as simple as whether or not that pressure is coming from Mercedes, and I don't think it will. Once the season gets underway, I think they will be trying to protect him and keep him away from that noise and give him the space to make mistakes and improve. And, harking back to my previous answer about Lando Norris, you need that space to make those mistakes in order to kind of push on. And something I said in the podcast, you learn more from mistakes than you do your successes. So I think Mercedes will be trying to create that environment for him. Where the problem comes, the expectation games, will come from ultimately us and the fans. We're going to be the first people to ask questions if he's not responding. And I say we as in the media at large. That's where the pressure will come, and that's where Mercedes are going to try and protect him from. So I don't think they have put him under too much pressure. There's certainly things that you can legitimately call out, like him questioning whether or not he was ready back over the summer. Those concerns, I actually would flip that on the positive and say that, if anything, says to me that he is ready. And this is an 18-year-old who is coming in, and maybe, yes, he knows himself, but there are very experienced heads around him who are probably in a very good position to say, no, actually, you really are, and we're going to give you everything you possibly need to succeed. Trust us, and we're going to take you on this journey, and we're going to hold your hand through it. We're not going to let you fail. And I think out of all the big teams, Mercedes is a very good team to do that. I think a lot of the pressure and the expectation comes from the fact that we haven't seen a driver step into a race-winning car as a rookie for quite a long time in F1. That's what's so kind of unusual and alien about this scenario, which is partly amping up the pressure, not to mention, obviously, the already existing expectations of a guy who's skipped F3 altogether and is seen as the kind of next generational talent. So I think Mercedes will do their best to protect him, even if maybe some of the things they have done has already raised the bar.
Avir, thank you very, very much for your question. To all those who fired in your questions to us, thank you very, very much. And be sure to do so for the same time next week. This has been Racing News 365, answers your fan questions from Sam, Ian, and myself. We'll see you next time. See you later.
Take care, folks.
Thanks for joining us.